Welcome all. Greetings to our next video on time value money. So here we're really going to be focusing on loans. Three types of loans: discount, interest only, and amortized loans. And then we'll go a little bit further into these amortized loans and discuss building a schedule. So, as discussed, three types of loans. First is our discount loan. What does that mean? Well, it means that we basically don't have to pay anything until the end of the period. So we don't pay any principal or interest until the end. So no money down, don't have to pay for 80 months, blah, blah, blah. That's a discount loan. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Second is an interest-only loan. This isn't bad either. Basically, you only have to pay interest payments throughout the course of the loan. And then at the end of the period, you do have to pay back the principal and a little bit of interest at the end. Okay, so still have to do some payments, but you're only paying interest throughout the period of the loan. Finally, we have an amortized loan. Okay, now in this case, we're actually making payments on both the interest and the principal throughout the period of the loan. So, and they are equal payments, and just depending on what year that loan is, it's going to depend on how much we're paying of principal versus interest. Okay, but one thing to recognize with amortized loan is that you are paying off the interest slowly throughout the years rather than at the end. Okay, and that's going to come up again in just one moment. So let's look at an example here, and we're going to use this example to sort of understand the difference in terms of how much interest we actually have to pay, how costly each loan option is. Okay, so first we'll start with the one option. Okay, so again, this option might look very similar to what we just referred to. Okay, so in this case, we were going to borrow $40,000 for a period of 5 years. Now we have option one is to pay all of the interest and the principal in one lump sum at the end of 5 years. That sounds like a interesting type of loan, perhaps a discount loan. Okay. Next option might be, well, we only have to pay the interest rate for the first 4 years, and then we'll make the final payment of the interest and the principal at the end of the 5th year. Okay, that sounds familiar as well. Very interesting, if you will. And finally, we have the last option, which is we're going to make equal payments over the 5 years. Okay. And we're going to be paying both interest and part of the principal. Very interesting. So that sounds like a loan amortization. Now, really interesting question to ask is, which option would we pay less interest and why? Okay, so before we figure that out, we're going to start with, calculating the cost of each loan, and then we can sort of compare. So starting with the discount loan, okay, so with the discount loan, remember, we're paying one lump sum and we're paying it all at the end of 5 years. So we can use the future value. Okay, we know the present value is $40,000. We know that after 5 years, which is our number of periods at a rate of 10%, this is how much we will basically owe after those 5 years. Okay, so how much of that is actual interest? Well, we need to basically subtract the total amount from the loan or the principal amount, right? So that gives us $24,420. Okay, so that's how much interest we pay with method one or option one, which is our discount loan. Then we will consider the interest-only loan. So remember, with interest only, for the first 4 years, okay, we're only going to pay the interest, hence the term interest only. So we pay $4,000 from year 1 to 4, okay, but then finally in year 5, our final payment, we do have to pay, we still have to pay that interest of the $4,000, but we also have to pay back that principal, which we owe the $40,000. Okay, so we're paying $44,000 in year 5. So we add them together. Okay, so again, the 4 times 4 is $16,000. That's the interest we're paying from year 1 to 4, plus the $44,000 that we paid in year 5. So in other words, our total payment is $60,000. So what does that mean in terms of how much interest we're paying? Well, again, subtract the $60,000 from the $40,000, right? And we know that we've paid $20,000 worth of interest. Okay, so that's the additional borrowing, not including that principal. All right, so we've gotten two payments down, or two options down. We've started to figure out how much interest we're paying. Okay, now finally we have the amortized loan. Okay, so this is a little bit more interesting, and don't worry, we're going to have some more opportunity to dig deeper into this schedule, particularly in the Excel calculations. But for now, again, it's just important to understand. We want to figure out our total payments. Okay, so remember we're making equal payments each year. Okay, so what we have to do is actually figure out what our equal payment will be first. Okay, so we know a present value, 40,000, 10% interest rate, 5 years. We're going to compute the equal payments. So that's the $10,551.90. Okay, so we multiply that by 5, and that's going to give us how much we're paying in total. And really, when you think about it, if you take that total minus the 40,000, the principal, we're actually only paying $12,000, just over $12,759 in actual interest. Okay, so look at that. Going back to that question that we asked, well, we see it here, okay, and we can see it here again. So under those three options, remember the discount loan, we paid $24,000. Interest only loan, we paid $20,000. And finally, amortized loan, we only had to pay $12,000, all right? So we can see, obviously, the amortized loan is one of the lowest in terms of interest expense. Okay, now why do you think that is? Well, remember, we're paying a higher annual payment, right? So we had to do equal payments of about $10,000 a year. So, but what's really important is that we're actually reducing our principal each year, okay? And if we reduce our principal, then we're going to reduce the amount of interest we have to pay on that loan. So really, the bottom line is, the quicker we pay off that loan, the less interest we pay. Remember, the discount loan, we didn't pay off any of our loan till the last year. Okay, so you can see that's the most expensive. Sounds wonderful. You don't have to pay anything for 4 or 5 years, but there's a bigger expense at the end. Okay, so really the moral of the story is trying to pay off your debt as early as possible. You end up incurring less interest that you have to pay. Now, one thing we didn't calculate is we didn't understand or to calculate the amount of interest versus principal that we're paying each year with the amortization loan. Okay, so this is what an amortization schedule is all about. Okay, it helps us understand really how much of that equal payment, because remember we made that equal payment of just over $10,000, but we didn't know how much is going towards interest versus principal. Okay, so it's really helpful for both, the borrowers and the lenders to figure out what actual balance is left. And maybe you can make some adjustments. You might want to add some additional payments to help pay off earlier. So there is some options here. Okay. Now, again, we'll look at the procedure here, and you'll have more time to deal with this in your calculations, but we'll just help you understand the theory. So first thing that we did, if you recall, is we figured out the equal payments. Okay, so what were those equal payments that we're going to pay each year? That's important, number one. And then we, based off of that payment, we can calculate the interest on the balance. Okay. Once we figure out the interest, then we can subtract that from the payment, and then we can understand what the loan reduction is based off of the remaining amount. And we basically just continue this process for each payment till we get a zero loan balance. So what does that look like? Well, again, reminder from the previous example there, the Roseanne example, okay? Now we want to figure out specifically how much of the loan is paid off at the end of year 2. And this is exactly why we have an amortized schedule, because we can answer these questions and we can basically plan and understand what is left on our loan depending on the timeline. Okay, so again, first step, just as we said, was compute the amount of equal payments. This is how we get the equal payment. Okay, so that's step 1. And again, this is the completed version, but let's go back to trying to fill this out. Okay, so we did step 1, which was figure out the equal payment. And that's how we got this number here, okay? And the next thing we want to do is we want to figure out the interest, okay? So how do we calculate the interest? Well, we know that the interest rate is 10%. So 40,000 or 10% of 40,000 is 4,000, okay? So we know that we made a payment of 10,000. We know that our interest is 4,000, so we need to take the difference, and that's going to help us understand how much. And really the most important are these two lines here, because we understand how much interest we're paying versus how much principal we're paying, okay? When we add these two up, you'll see that we'll get this amount, and this is true for all of these here. So again, we're always making equal payments, but what's changing is the amount of interest we're paying. As you can see, as we get down to the more mature years, we pay less in interest and we pay more in principal, okay? And that's really what we want to be doing ideally, okay? So this is how we get to that level. So again, we subtracted the interest from the payment, we got our principal reduction, okay? Then we take the beginning balance to subtract the principal reduction, and that gives us our ending balance. And once we have our ending balance, that is really our beginning balance for year 2. And ultimately, we go through the same process. If you take 10% interest of the beginning of year 2, we get this $3,000 number. We subtract that from the payment, okay, again, to identify how much of that is our principal. And once we understand how much is deducted from the principal, then we can use our beginning balance, subtract our principal, and we get our ending balance. And we can continue to go down until we get that zero balance, okay? So this is really what an amortization schedule looks like. It helps us understand what we're actually paying, whether it's interest versus our principal in each year, okay? And that's very helpful for both the borrowers and the lenders, particularly for planning purposes. Okay, that's our video for this 2 learning objectives. Again, we've discussed the 3 different types of loans, and we've built and analyzed amortization schedule. And not to worry, you'll be doing more calculations on amortization schedules, and you'll enjoy it immensely. Thanks for watching, and happy financing.